Audio log, witness statement, personal, date November 3rd, 2017. Location, Austin, Texas. Recorder, ML. I'm making this recording because the detectives told me to write everything down, while it's all still clear. But it isn't clear. It keeps changing when I close my eyes. The details slide around like they don't want to be pinned down. So this is my version, as close to the truth as I can get it. If someone else ever finds this, I want you to understand something up front. I didn't do anything reckless. I didn't go looking for trouble. I didn't think I was brave or special. I just felt bad for a guy with a dog. It was Friday night, early November 2017. Cool for Austin, one of those evenings where downtown feels almost gentle. Music leaking out of bars, food trucks glowing like islands of light, people laughing too loud because the week's finally over. I'd just gotten off a late shift. I was tired. Half on my phone, half on autopilot. I remember thinking I should go straight home. But I was hungry and I didn't feel like cooking. There was a taco place still open a few blocks away. That's where I saw him. He was sitting on a curb just outside the light spill from the restaurant. Cardboard sign in his lap, handwritten in thick marker. Veteran, anything helps. What caught my attention wasn't him. It was the dog. Small mutt, tan and white. Big ears that stuck up like radar dishes. Clean, too clean for a street dog. It was sitting politely beside him, tail thumping against concrete, like it was happy just to exist. When I walked past the dog stood up and padded over to me. No hesitation, leaned against my leg, like we were old friends. I laughed, reached down without thinking. The man smiled and said, "Yeah, he does that. Knows who's good." I know how that sounds now. At the time it felt harmless, human. The guy looked rough, beard grown out, clothes worn thin, but not aggressive, not drunk. His eyes were sharp though. I noticed that. They tracked me closely, like he was reading my reactions. I gave him some cash, a $5 at first. Then, for reasons I still don't fully understand, I pulled out more and added it. He thanked me twice, called me brother, said not many people stopped anymore. I told him I was grabbing some food and asked if he wanted something. He said yes immediately, didn't hesitate. That should have been my first warning. I bought him a full meal, sat on the curb while he ate. The dog curled up between us, head on its paws, watching everything. He told me he was a veteran, Army, overseas. Didn't say where at first. Said the streets were harder than anything he'd seen over there. I didn't challenge it. I didn't want to be that guy who demanded proof from someone already at the bottom. The stories came out slow, like he was choosing which parts to reveal. They didn't quite line up. Dates jumped, names changed. He corrected himself more than once, then laughed it off. I noticed someone else too. He didn't eat like someone who was starving. He ate carefully, methodically, like he wasn't distracted by the food at all. His attention stayed on me. He asked my name, where I worked, whether I lived nearby, whether I lived alone. I joked that he was asking a lot of questions. He smiled and said, "Habit. You don't survive out here without knowing people." The dog stopped wagging its tail. It just stared at me. When he finished eating, I stood up and told him I had to head home. He rose too, a little too smoothly, and slung his backpack over one shoulder. He said he was heading in the same direction, asked if I minded the company for a bit. I hesitated. The sidewalks were busy, cars passing, People everywhere. I told myself I was being paranoid. So I said, okay. We walked. At first it was fine, normal conversation. He talked about shelters, about places downtown that were safe, and the places that weren't. His tone changed when he said safe, like he didn't mean what I thought he meant. As we got farther from the crowds, his voice dropped. His stories got stranger. He talked about how people looked right through him, how easy it was to disappear when you wanted to. Then he said, funny thing is, people trust you more when you look like you've got nothing. I laughed, unsure how to respond. He stopped walking suddenly. I took 2 more steps before realizing and turning back. He was smiling again, but this time it didn't feel friendly. He asked where I lived exactly. I told him that it was far enough. Said I didn't feel comfortable answering that. He raised his hands in a mock surrender and said he didn't mean anything by it. We started walking again. That's when I noticed we weren't on a street I recognized. I'd lived in Austin for years. I knew downtown, but the buildings were darker, older, fewer streetlights, fewer people. The music from 6th Street had faded into something distant and hollow. I slowed down. He didn't. He turned his head slightly and said, "You walk like someone who thinks help is close." Before I could ask what he meant, his hand shot out and grabbed my jacket. He yanked me backward into an alley so fast my feet barely caught up. The smell hit me first. Rot, old trash, urine, and something metallic underneath it. He slammed me against the brick wall, hard. The air rushed out of my lungs in a sound I didn't recognize as my own. The dog barked, once, sharp and loud, then went silent. His face was inches from mine. Up close I could see the cracks in him. The smile didn't reach his eyes. The way his pupils were blown wide, despite the low light. He whispered things. How people like me wanted to feel like heroes. How easy it was to use pity. How uniforms and dogs and the right words opened doors no one meant to unlock. I felt something press into my side. Not a gun, something narrower, sharper. I tried to scream. Nothing came out. He told me to be still, said it would be quick if I didn't fight. Said no one would come because no one ever did. That's when the dog moved. It lunged, not at me but at him, snapping, growling, in a way that sounded wrong coming from something so small. He shouted and jerked back just enough for the pressure to lift. I drove my knee up into his leg and shoved with everything I had. I ran. I don't remember choosing a direction. I just ran until my chest burned and my vision blurred. I burst onto a main road screaming like an animal. A car screeched to a stop. The driver jumped out. Someone else called 911. By the time the police arrived, the alley was empty. No man, no dog, no sign it ever been there. At the station, they took my statement, asked the same questions over and over. Did I know him? Did I follow him willingly? Had I taken drugs? Then one of the detectives brought out a folder. Inside were photos, sketches, grainy stills from security cameras. Different clothes, different beards, same eyes, same dog. They told me there'd been a string of assaults, some fatal, mostly men, mostly alone, mostly people who'd tried to help someone first. They said he moved constantly, shelters, streets, cities, always ahead of patrols, always leaving just enough confusion to slip through. They told me I was lucky. I don't feel lucky. I feel stupid. So if you're listening to this, if you see someone with a sign and a story and something that makes you stop, listen carefully. Kindness is not a weakness, but it can be exploited. Don't follow strangers. Don't let guilt drag you into the dark. And never assume someone is harmless just because they know how to look broken. Some monsters survive by convincing you they need saving.